Hello, everybody. Okay, welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Rouxx, and this is part two. I'm here with the lovely Cattinson. She is a detrans female. This is part two of our conversation. We just took a little break. If you haven't checked out part one yet, definitely check that out. Really great conversation. Cat has been like just such a pleasure to talk to. And like I said, we've been trying to make this happen for like months now, and I'm so grateful that she finally gave up so much of her day to talk to me and to talk to our community, and just really lucky to have her. So where we left off was I had asked Kat sort of when she peaked, was it just a eureka light bulb moment, or was it sort of a gradual unraveling of like, this is starting to just not be what I thought it was? And she was telling us her story about that, so I will let her continue.
Thanks, Brittany, and thanks again. You're awesome for having me. Love you and your channel, and this is great. But so, okay, when I was peaking, the first thing that kind of started to click for me was I just started noticing some disturbing behaviors in individuals within the trans community who I knew. One of them I was living with at the time, and so it was mostly trans-identified males who have started taking estrogen, and I just noticed some like changes in mental stability, to the point where I felt unsafe at times. And one of them was like a really close friend of mine who, when he had started estrogen, like initially I feel like there was kind of the placebo effect, or for a while, like he seemed to be really happy, like doing better. But then over time, like honestly, it seemed like he wasn't really doing any better and was just doing worse. And I started to have doubts that the estrogen was really helping him. And then with this other like trans-identified male, I noticed this like weirdly aggressive yet like emotionally manipulative behavior. And just, there was also some behavior I witnessed that was very predatory, and I'm not saying that all trans-identified males are like that at all. I'm not making generalizations to the entire group, but I was seeing some behavior that was very, not to stereotype, but very male typical, in that like, let me rephrase that. It's a type of intimidation and physical intimidation and just behavior that you most often see on, like, I'd witnessed it before in like creepy men, the way they were behaving. And so something in my brain, I was just like, my spidey senses are tingling. Just something about this doesn't seem right. Like, are trans women really women? And I felt horrible for even questioning that. Like, I was like, of course they are. Like, that's wrong. Think, don't even go there. But I had a particularly bad like event happen with one of them where they just sort of blew up at me for like no reason, and they were kind of like crying but also like screaming and getting in my face and like very like intimidating and like aggressively, and over like almost nothing. And I was just shocked by this reaction, and I'd never really seen them act like this before, and I knew they'd recently started estrogen, and so I just felt really unsafe. I felt upset and angry, and I was just like, okay, like I hurt myself by taking testosterone. Transition didn't work out for me. I'm seeing many people in my life who it doesn't seem to be working out for, and I'm seeing these behaviors that concern me. And so that was when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to dip my toe into kind of the other side that I was told not to engage with, because they're horrible, bigoted people, that just hate trans people. And, because it wasn't that there was any hatred. It was more like, I guess, just concern, and like just something felt off to me. Something felt fishy. So I read Irreversible Damage while I listened to the audiobook by Abigail Schreier, was the first thing. And then I typed into the YouTube search, I think I typed in either trans women aren't women, or like are trans women women, and Posey Parker's interview with Trigonometry.
That was one of the first ones I like watched too. I was like, oh crap. This is like a whole thing. Like
Yeah.
other people are starting to also be like, what the hell is this? That's so funny. I remember I was sitting in my daughter's room folding laundry, listening to her being like, wow, I totally agree with all of this.
Yeah, I thought she was like very her arguments were really, really good. Her whole experience with the police and all of that, just, for daring to like question gender ideology on Twitter, like,
That was
uh,
scary.
the way that, I mean, she was literally targeted by the police, and just, yeah, hearing her story and just the way she told it, like, she's not like, she's just like very to the point and very firm in her arguments. Like, I didn't pick up, because I'd been told that TERFs were just like hateful people, but I didn't really find that she was spewing hate about transgender people. She was just like, yeah, I mean, gender dysphoria doesn't mean you're literally a woman trapped in a man's body. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, you know what, that totally does make sense, actually, to separate the two. Like, like, just because someone has an eating disorder or like body dysmorphia, it doesn't mean that they're actually fat. It means that's the way they perceive themselves. And then when she was just so firm, like, a woman is an adult human female, not a stereotype, can be whatever type of woman you are, and you're still a woman, like that, it just clicked for me. And I was like terrified because I got to the end and I was like, wow, I think I really agree with this lady. She's like super smart, but
It's like,
I'm
what do
also
I do
terrified because I'm
now?
literally living with like I was living with two people who are deep in the gender ideology. I'm not speaking poorly of them. Like, I wish them the best and everything, but like, they were very deeply entrenched in it. And so I felt like scared of, I guess, my own opinions. And that was sort of when the deprogramming phase began. But I also discovered during that time was when I discovered Exelonzic, and I found her at first on TikTok, and also King Critical's channel here on YouTube. I found very helpful, just sort of breaking down some of the really, really actually bad and illogical arguments of the gender ideology. I really identified with that, no pun intended, because I've always been a fan of like math, science, and like logic puzzles, and just the way he like kind of approached it from that perspective really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And then later on, this was after I was fully detransitioned, when you actually had tagged, or you had included part of my TikTok in one of your videos, and so that was
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
discovered you, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, there's like another voice adding to this community. I was like really excited because I was like, I'm glad that more and more people are jumping into this argument, and not being afraid to speak out.
I was like so surprised when you responded and you were like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh wow, okay, they're real. This is cool." Like, I was starting to get like even like excellence. Like when I reached out to her and she responded, I'm like, "Oh, yeah." It was really cool to just start like seeing all this stuff, and even just seeing you evolve since then, and like you just seem like you're coming into like just a more clarity and more confidence with it. And, I felt like in the beginning you were very like apologetic, which I feel like is just still so much of our own female just socialization. And you were like, listen, no, like, I'm sorry, but now I feel like you've gotten to the point where you're like, but I think because you like come with such kindness, like you don't need to apologize. I think you've realized that you don't need to apologize. That this is just what it is, and you just take and you speak with so much kindness. It's like I would love to hear the justification for taking down anything that you post as hate speech. Like it just. So what did you do? I mean, you're sitting there and you just had listened to heard the Abigail Schreier irreversible damage, and then you heard the Posey Parker trigonometry. What did you do with all this information while you were sitting there as, well, at least up until that point, a formerly trans identifying female and living with two trans people? Were you just like, what do I do now? Like, how do I got to get out of
Yeah,
here? Like, where do I go for this information?
for quite a while I didn't really put any ideas out there. Like, I kind of went radio silent on social media. Like, I just didn't post anything for a while because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to still be like non-binary and posting. Like, I don't want to I don't want to be like disingenuous, because I was like, okay, eventually, like, I'm gonna basically come out as like detransitioned, and so that took me like a while to do, but I just kind of avoided like bringing up the subjects to the people I was living with and like certain friends of mine, because I definitely wasn't like, I just didn't want the subject to come up at all. I was so afraid of offending people, or like, and I did apologize a lot when I first started posting again, because like, yeah, I mean, they really make you feel like you're a horrible person just for disagreeing, and there's so much gaslighting. Like, one of the first things I did was just stand up for using the term detransition. I was like, no,
Right.
this feels right to me. This is like scientifically accurate terminology. I'm not going to just drop the term detransition because you say that
Oh,
it's
that you were
bad.
never
Like,
trans, you mean? Like, is it the idea that you had never been
it's
trans?
it's tied to that, but they're trying to twist the narrative, that,
Oh,
and
it's like
this
a
comes from a
reach. It's
study.
another type of transition, isn't it? That it's you're
Yeah, the
transitioning again.
retransition narrative. So this comes from a study by Jack Turban, who, he's done studies on like transitioning, and he's horrible. He's just awful. He receives donations from Arbor Pharmaceuticals and I think Pfizer, and which are Arbor is a manufacturer of tryptophan, which is a puberty blocker. And so he released a study on detransitioning, but he purposefully left detransitioners out. I feel like I can safely make that accusation. Like, he only surveyed a population of people who still identified as trans, which, like, since then there's been two separate studies that show the majority, like the vast majority, I think it's something like 70% or more, no longer identify as trans, of detransitioners. So he essentially left out the vast majority of detransitioners in the study.
Oh.
And so he's trying to push this narrative that detransitioners only detransition because of social pressure.
Right. No, yes. I've seen
Yeah.
this too. And I've had people come on my channel, especially when I posted, my most popular to date video that I've ever done was the one where I featured you pretty heavily in it. The one that has like the compilation of detransitioners. And a lot of people reached out and said that they really liked your piece. But one of the
Um,
biggest pushbacks that I got from TRAs on that video, and I get them like in my DMs and stuff too on Instagram. It's interesting. They're not super vocal in my comment section, but I've like caught in other areas where they'll be like discussing the video like somewhere else or whatever. I think because I have such a strong like turf community, they just like leave it alone. But like where they've said that they were like there's no such thing as detransitioners. The vast majority, except for like 1 or 2 very rare percent, are detransitioning because they can't handle the transphobia, and because their transition didn't go as well as they had wanted, and they're unhappy with the aesthetics, but they really are trans, and they just think it's going to be easier to just go back and live as cis, but they're like not happy with it. And I was like, and because the thing is, by now I had already talked to you, and I had a conversation with Abel, and I was like, no, no, that's not at all been what I've heard from like actual D-trans people. But like, yeah, keep like you just are you not dizzy from like spinning in circles with this logic? Because you guys are just like spinning tops at this point. It's just
I feel like
nuts.
the only way you could seriously believe that is if you spend all your time on TikTok and only listen to like TRAs on TikTok. And I mean, I've experienced firsthand, it's so easy to get banned on TikTok just for not following the narrative. So I think a lot of detransitioners on there are afraid to really speak out, because they
Mm.
don't want to get banned, or they just are
Oh, they
afraid of the
probably are
backlash or
getting
whatever.
banned. We just aren't getting to their videos by the time that they. And I also feel like when I listen to sometimes when you do apologize, I also realize that a lot of it is you just like begging the algorithm for like to just like please let me just say this one thing, okay? Like, yes, I understand. No, like not all people and not this. Like, you hit all the points like that they could possibly like remove the video for. Like, with all of that being said, can I just say this one thing? Damn it! Like,
Yeah, I've learned since then that it really doesn't matter how, it really doesn't matter how kind you are. I mean, I am still, I try to be very calm and as compassionate as I can be, because you know, every once in a while, I feel like I really do get through to somebody, and that makes it all worth it. Although this last week, I have to say the attacks have been particularly
Can
vicious,
you just
especially on
tag
TikTok.
me? Tap me in. I don't give a shit about TikTok. I have like 700 different accounts. They get banned like every other day. Like I'll just make a couple more. Like tag me in. I'll like fight all your battles for you.
Oh, you're so nice. Yeah, I usually just at this point just immediately like block them. I don't even engage because I know they report
Yeah.
my uh my videos, but if someone seems to be engaging in a respectful way, then like I will for a little bit, but most of the time it just goes sour.
Yeah.
I, yeah, so it really doesn't matter with most of these people like how kind you are. So I have become a little bit less apologetic, and I'm more to the point than I used to be. Because I guess more my goal now is like, yes, it is nice to get through to someone occasionally, but
Who's
it's more
captured?
to um I guess change the opinion of people who are more neutral or just aren't informed about the topic, rather than actually thinking that I'm gonna convert people who are like
Yes.
fully drinking the Kool-Aid and all of that, because that's actually very difficult to do. And I think the only reason that Kelly J's video got through to me was because I was already kind of questioning, and I'd already been burned by medical transition. And, you know, I'd started to see some of the darker sides of the community like already. And that's why it spoke to me. I think if I would have watched it or tried to watch it like a year before that or something, I wouldn't have been able to sit through it. Like, I wouldn't have been able to hear it because I've just been programmed not to listen to anyone who questions the narrative.
Well, it was so you had said that in one of your earlier videos that I thought was really interesting. You really were one of the earliest detrans people I ever listened to. It was you who I had found because I specifically went on TikTok and it was like typing in like detrans, and a lot of it was like trans people explaining detrans people, and I was like,
It's so
eh.
ironic, isn't it? Isn't it? Like, I'm not allowed to talk about trans
Yeah,
people.
I have to be. I have to be. It's like being like mansplained by like like detransplant
Explain.
or transplained. I was like, that. Are you sure? Did you talk to them about that, or is this coming from you? Because it sounds like it's kind of like serving you more than probably. But then I had found you, and then there's another detrans woman on there. She's got red hair. You might know who I'm talking. If I said, "Do you know who I'm talking about?" She has like red hair, and her voice is still pretty heavily testosterone affected. Like
I think I know who you're talking about. She like mentioned her singing voice, I think.
maybe
And that's
I've got
not
to reach back out to her too because I had early on reached out to her, but I wasn't checking TikTok enough. And then I saw like a month later, I'm like, oh, she had responded to me like weeks ago, and I just never said anything back. But she had a lot of really good shorts. It was her, you and her were the first detrans people. Then I was like, wow, like this is really like there's really people being impacted, and I was so surprised, especially with you and her. I was like, you both seem so like reasonable and like intelligent, and it's just crazy how even you guys could be, pulled into a lot of this, and it just goes to show how powerful like social contagion is. And if we don't need a better example, I mean, look at Nazism. Like the fact that you can get otherwise regular, reasonable, empathetic, caring, just run day to day people to go along with these really just bizarre beliefs, and that's the power of it. I mean, look at cults. I'll send you when we get off. I'll send you a really cool podcast that I found on. It's these three women who one of them is a survivor of a cult. So now they interview cult survivors, and each episode is talking about a different cult. And and it's always been people who were like really hardcore into it, not just like the weekend warriors, but like people who were like high up, high ranking, and it's always women. And it's so interesting to hear these perspectives about these other cults and then kind of apply those principles to what we're learning more about the trans thing. And you might find it interesting just of what you had been through. But another thing that I thought was interesting And I actually, when we just took this little break, I was like, oh, let me remember to talk to her about this. And you ended up pretty much talking about it anyway. Because another Detrans woman that I talked to, who like, she like identifies as trans, but then but acknowledges that she's a woman. She's like a very, I think, still doesn't know where she wants to land with all this. But she had really opened up to me one night, talking to me about her experiences with trans identifying males. And she was like, there's still so much misogyny. I'm still very much treated as a woman, you know, and but then I get gaslit because if there's ever like a conflict, they'll sit there and accuse me of mansplaining or they'll accuse me of having male privilege. And she's just like, sound get like this is male privilege, you know. It's just all of this really. And she's like, I feel like I'm being abused, emotionally abused almost. But then I also realized that I sort of asked for this, that to be treated as a man. But then it's like, how are you going to tell me that I have male privilege? I mean, I was female forever. And they'll say that, oh, you have male socialization and all this stuff. And she's like, I can't take it. Like, what has your experience been with just misogyny, even as trans identifying? Like, I've heard from a lot of detransitioners that it doesn't resolve the misogyny that they experience.
Oh, totally. I think what happens with I was talking with someone about this on TikTok the other day. But I think what happens is when females transition, they they become more invisible. Like, so okay, like
Yes.
if you're not passing as a man, people will see you as a masculine woman, which is, not considered as attractive to men in our current culture. And so it's like, yeah, you do kind of disappear. People are shorter with you, like they're not as nice to you,
Because you're not performing for them. I mean, there's
yeah,
also that too.
exactly. You're not fitting their expectations of how a woman should present. But then like when you go on testosterone, testosterone can cause women to pass quite quickly compared to the other way around.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I never like fully passed. It was kind of like 50-50 for me, at the height of like when I'd been on testosterone. But, I mean, yeah, like up until the moment where it was kind of 50-50, I definitely experienced misogyny. Like, I think, people are just ruder to gender non-conforming women. I mean, they're rude to all women, like let's be honest, but like,
Yeah.
but gender non-conforming people in general and gender non-conforming women, like, it's like you not being attractive, or not like not presenting in a feminine way is like just another reason for them to be mean to you and target you. And so yeah, the fact that and I don't know, you're probably familiar with gosh, what is her channel name? Her name's Benji.
Yeah, yeah.
But
GNC centric.
centric, yeah, like she had mentioned being in a support group where like trans women or trans identified males were like basically telling her that she had male privilege even
Yeah.
though she's never been on testosterone or anything. And now that I've detransitioned, this isn't so much people in person, but people online, it's like they don't tell me that I have male privilege anymore, but it's like now it's cis privilege.
Oh God,
uh,
yeah.
and but they're being like extremely misogynistic to me, and reducing me to stereotypes, and just saying I obviously like identify with the female gender stereotype, and just all this like stuff insulting like female genitalia.
Yeah, that's another big thing. Oh my God. I've had that too. Being like, oh, why? You know, I posted one. This was a really disgusting comment from some guy who was like, why would I want that fish factory? You know, it's disgusting. You know, men love. I was like, yeah, I'm sure men love like getting poop on their, like, what are you talking about? It's not, not to like, but still, it's like you're acting, oh, it's so disgusting, a vagina that's self-cleaning. And first of all, vaginas have like pheromone. It's a strong odor, and it's like it's strong because it's going to attract certain people. Actually, what I think is interesting is that pheromones, being attracted to someone's pheromones, actually is a biological way to confirm whether or not you're genetically compatible. So if you really like someone's smell, so if you don't like someone's smell, and it's not because they actually have like an infection or something, I mean, that's another thing, right? But if you don't like someone's smell, it usually means that you're not like genetically compatible. It's this like complicated thing. But if you really like their smell, maybe other people don't like it, but you're really attracted to it, it's a sign that you have like a genetic compatibility or something. But it's all this complex stuff.
Hmm.
Whatever. But I was just kind of like, sir,
Yeah,
are you trying to make
I
yourself
mean,
feel better? Like,
the amount of misogyny has like definitely ramped up from this whole movement. I mean, and it's just unbelievable. Like I've grown like very disillusioned with like particularly like okay, I don't consider myself liberal or conservative, but you know, these like men who are liberal, who are like supposedly for like human rights and all of that, that like can't even define what a woman is. And like, you know, if someone says a woman is like a gender role, like they're just fine with that. And they're like, oh yeah, and like it's just it feels like such a cop out and just such a disappointment. And like, you know, I don't agree with the views of a lot of conservative men either, but there is, you know, something that's at least more appealing about them like holding the boundary and being like, no, a woman is an adult human female. Like I'd rather that than someone just not even like care about protecting women at all or like listen to women. Like that I feel like is far more misogynistic. It's just like ignore women's concerns entirely.
totally. No, it totally. And you know what? It's funny, like you said about the whole, like, the virtue signaling. There's misogyny on both sides. Are we
Oh,
frozen?
I mean,
Sorry,
yeah,
that's just, are we frozen, guys? I think we're frozen. Oh, I think it might be, I might need to, like, call you back
am I
again.
still here?
Hold on. All right, you know what it is? Hold on. I'm going to call you right back again. This
Okay.
conversation's so good. And then we'll wrap it up because I got to go in a few minutes. But this has been such a good conversation. We can like,
Uh,
all right, I'll call you right back. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Just having so much fun talking. Cat's great. And it sucks too because I feel like, in the beginning of these conversations, it's just like finding like a flow. And then once we start going, it's like, oh man, I already got to get going. Let's see. Invite. Really enjoy these conversations. Okay, here we go. Oh, we did have some time remaining. That's weird. Oh well. It was frozen for some reason. Oh wait, here. End meeting for all. That's what I need to do. Sorry guys. I'm gonna do a new meeting. We're gonna do it this way. You guys are awesome. Yeah, it's just, one of the things that I really have. Yay, are we in? Yay, cool. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, let me just.
Did you want to do some questions since I know we're
Yeah.
close?
Well, you know what? Let's see. That's all right. We'll just keep you. You're the important person anyway. Okay. Well, I gotta leave in a few minutes, so we can always like. Let's see if I see any good ones. It might be hard to like finish a question at this point. I think we hit a lot of good stuff. Plus, I gotta get going. But I guess just what are your like final? It is and it sucks because I feel like we just got into a really good flow. I feel like, because we've talked online and then, this is our first time like really talking like on video. So it's like finding a flow and now like we're in a really good flow and then I gotta go. But, hopefully we can do this again. And it's just interesting hearing these stories. And again, especially like just hearing about how you're still treated as a man versus a woman. And it is interesting you said that like men are rude to you when they think, and I think it's not so much that because you're not looking the way they expect. Well, it is that. But I think part of why men are rude to gender nonconforming women is because when they see that a woman is performing femininity, right? the performance of femininity is really for men in a lot of ways. And, I mean, even I say this, women can say it's like, oh, it's for me and oh, it's for other women. Yeah, I guess. But it's like, it, or at least maybe they see it, and maybe it is, whatever. But I think it's, they always see is like, there's always that potential there, and I think it's like, but when they see a woman who's very clearly signaling that, nope, there's no potential, I have no interest in you, I'm not going to perform for you, I'm not going to sit there and try to be nice for you, I don't care what you think, I literally, nothing I do is for you, and they can pick up on that very quickly, and then it's just kind of like they're hostile because it's like they know that the same things that work on women who are at least amenable to men, and have some level of interest in men aren't going to work on women like that. And it's like, they're just like, whatever, I'm not even going to try with you because I can't get anywhere with you. And and it's just,
Yeah,
it sucks how that is. But,
totally. I mean, it makes sense. And I think that it's just everything from like our media to socialization, I think kind of pushes people like it programs you to expect certain behaviors from women and like certain behaviors from men.
right.
And a lot of it is just, yeah, it's just programming. Like I don't even think it's I mean maybe there's an element like a hint of it that's biological, but I don't think that it's altogether natural. Like I think a lot of it has to do with, I don't know, trying to sell everything as a product and
Yeah.
have men's products and women's products. And anyway,
Just trying to get
we
what
could go
they
on.
can out of us. Yeah. God, there's so many other things I want to ask you too. Like, we'll have to do this again if you will
Well, I
honor
was
me
gonna
with
say you
another.
should come on my channel at some
Yeah.
point because I want to start having guests on my channel. I've just like been so behind on like old projects I've been meaning to start and like get out, and it's so hard to do like the TikTok thing and that, and then Twitter, Instagram, like all this social media.
What is your like focus from here on out? Why don't you play? When is that? You have a documentary coming out that you had done. They interviewed for. What's going on with that?
Um, they're working on it right now, like getting it edited. I'm actually in multiple documentaries.
That's awesome.
And I'm so excited that and they're all by women filmmakers as well, which is really cool. So I will definitely keep you posted when I know more details. I know
Please
one of
do.
them is supposed to come out. She had said late summer, early fall, I believe. So I don't know how that timetable is going with editing and everything, but at least one of them is going to feature some of my music as well, which is
Awesome.
super awesome.
Awesome.
Um, and so yeah, one of them is specifically about detransition women. That's the one with my music in it. Well, two of them might have a little bit of my music in it, but with the one that's more featuring it is, and so yeah, there's going to be some other like pretty well known detrans women in that one. One of them is just sort of about the harms of gender ideology, like in general, and it's a shorter documentary. And then one of them is also a feature length, and I think that one interviews everyone from like doctors to detransitioners to like parents. It's more of like a broader scope.
Good.
So yeah, it's really exciting to be like a part of these projects. I think it's so important to get the word out.
Good. Oh, Kat. And you know what? And I just like, and just try to remember, when you're going through this abuse and all this crap that like it seems like you've been through and it's been an uphill battle and it seems like you're pushing against this huge mob, just remember that like, as we know in history, a lot of people never get their flowers for the work that they do and the work that they're eventually recognized for and given so much gratitude for. And part of you're standing on a frontier of something that it's a lot of people haven't recognized it yet. The shift hasn't happened, and early on recognized something really, really powerful, and you were brave enough to stand up. You could have quietly detransitioned and just gone about your life and just quietly, kept this whole thing, but it was like, you recognize that there are others who are still here, and there's, you felt like a responsibility to the people around you. And I mean, that's a massive sacrifice. Like, you didn't have to open yourself up to all this. You didn't have to give us your story. You didn't have to like talk about these like embarrassing side effects or other painful or difficult things. And just know like it's really not for nothing. Like I said, like I have two daughters. I live with a woman who has two teen daughters, and they're getting introduced to it. They talk about like non binary people, and you're writing the blueprint for young women to have an alternative narrative, to have something that will challenge that. So when you're getting all the abuse and all that sort of stuff, just know that like it's really so not for nothing. And like, this is, you'll get your flowers whether in this lifetime or in the next, but it's so appreciated by me and the community, and just thank you for all that you've done. So
Oh, well, thank you so much, Brittany, and thank you for the work that you do as well. Um I can't imagine that the backlash you get could be easy. But I love your channel. I think you're so good at finding finding different resources and like compiling them in a way where you really illustrate your points well, and you provide just like a plethora of information. It's like another way to cite your sources in a way, because I think people see like the primary sources and they're like, wow, like what she's saying, like that's really happening. So I
yeah.
appreciate your approach, and I appreciate you like really supporting me for so long, because it really does mean a lot when uh, a lot of the feedback I get is so negative. It feels really good to be supported by other members of the community. So
Yeah,
thank you.
Kat. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. As for as much like shit I talk about TikTok, I do want to like send my gratitude for giving me little gems like you. If it wasn't for TikTok, I wouldn't have found you. So I need to remember that, all the bashing of TikTok that I do. And and what you're doing is so important. You're putting information that's challenging the dominant thing on TikTok, and it's like you're just standing in the middle of it. I'm kind of like nested in a little kind of like-minded community, but you're really like standing in the middle of like hell, just like screaming with your microphone, and hope, or megaphone, hoping that you can overpower at least some of this noise. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on my channel. I'm so glad we could make this happen. And now that like we already have a sort of dialogue established, let's totally do this again. I'm so more than happy to come on your channel. We can keep it going, talk about different topics. We could do like a reaction video together. I'd love to keep
Yeah,
working with you. So it was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And like I said, everybody else, I'm going to put all of Kat's links in the bio. I got to go run and pick up my kids, so it won't be right this second. But it's Cattinson, so you can also just type that in, and then I'll make sure to get all of her links and stuff like that. Actually, Kat, if you'll just message me with just like a whole thing of any links that you want, or even the other project links, anything that just a little whatever you want to add into the description, I'll make sure that that gets in there so people know how to find you. um
yeah, sure. I will.
yeah, so please. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. You're the best. This was really, really nice. It was even better than I imagined it would be. You're great. Thank
I
you.
agree. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Much love,
you.
and I'm sure I'll see you again soon for
Yeah,
another.
so soon. Thanks, Kat. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us. Really appreciate you guys. All right. Take care. Thanks, Kat. Talk to you soon.